Hey there, Curtis coming at you from the Full Octane Garage. Today we're going to talk a little bit about gas tanks, specifically what not to do with a gas tank and what to do with a gas tank. We have a 1933 Auburn that we have here, 1933 Auburn boat tail speedster, and we had an aftermarket tank. I say aftermarket, it was probably a homemade tank. Looking at the condition of the welds, they were not very impressive. When we filled the tank up, we'd have a leak about halfway up the tank in one of the side seams, so we decided to pull the tank out and see if we could save it. We did some serious flushing on the tank to get the fumes out of it, at least we thought we did, and we let it sit for a while. Did a little bit of welding. We actually welded a whole seam along the side, went perfect, no problems whatsoever. Filled it with water again, had a little bit of a pinhole we wanted to fix, so we went back and did about a 1/4 inch weld, and all of a sudden a bit of a boom, and the tank jumped a few feet and scared us a bit. My friend who was welding was looking at it, and all of a sudden the tank just kind of disappeared. Had to lift his helmet up, saw it was gone. So we decided that we were going to have to get a new tank fabricated for us. What we did was we took the dimensions of the original tank. It's not like you can go buy an off-the-shelf tank for a 1933 Auburn. So we took the dimensions of the tank to a local fabricator who took 16 gauge steel and produced us a brand new tank. The original tank had 2 baffles in it. So what we decided to do in our new tank was to do 2 baffles in it. We kept the filler off the old tank, moved it over to the new tank. Rather than having a side outlet for the fuel supply, we decided to put it in the top for safety. We ordered a couple of parts from Tanks Inc. To include a sending unit filler plate, a sending unit plate, because this tank originally didn't have a sending unit, so we made a provision for a sending unit, modern style sending unit. And we also ordered the 3/8 bungs for the drain and also for the fuel pickup to go in. So this will be a fairly modern style tank now. It's all TIG welded. We do have 2 baffles in it. As you'll see from this picture, there's a baffle about 1/3 of the way in each side of the tank. We did that before the top went on the tank, so we wanted to make sure everything lined up. We did all of the hole drilling before the top went on the tank, so there's no metal shavings in the tank. And then we also wiped down the inside of the tank with some lacquer thinner, so that when we knew that we were going to do an inside coat, we wanted it to be a clean piece of metal to coat too. So it got all welded up. We got it back yesterday, and the next stage of this is we wanted to seal the inside of the tank to prevent rust from going from the inside out. So we came across a product at O'Reilly's called Red Coat. It's about $32 a quart. We bought 1 quart, came home. As you know, we don't normally like to read instructions, but we did go ahead and read the instructions on this can, and because this can is normally made to take and supply a 12-gallon tank. What we have is dimensionally about a 22-gallon tank. So we went ahead and bought a 2nd quart, and we're going to test the application of this and see how well it works. They tell you to seal all of the holes in the tank, so we've got pipe plugs in the bung holes to seal those off. We've got a sealer plate for the sending unit, and then once we fill it up, we'll just tape over the inlet so that we can slosh this. I think it's pretty thick. It feels pretty thick when you shake it. We'll slosh it around the tank, get it nice and coated. Then it says to drain it back into your cans, because whatever's left over you can reuse. So you want to save it and preserve it in case you ever have to do another tank, small lawnmower, motorcycle, or what have you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to our dirty shop where we can get stuff kind of smelly, and we'll take some more shots of showing you how we're going about doing this. Once we get the inside coated, then we're going to do an exterior semi-flat black on the tank to get the exterior of it protected from any kind of corrosion. And then we'll get it back in the car, and we'll have the car back on the road. So we'll be back at you in a few minutes from the other garage, and we'll show you a little bit about how the application goes. Okay, we're back at you. We moved over to the shop where we do our dirty work, we'll say. So as you can see, this is our semi-paint booth, welding shop, and whatever else we need to do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open up a couple quarts of the red coat. We're going to pour it in. It had some really crazy locking rings on it, and you kind of had to drive a screwdriver up around the edge of it and flip them off. So be careful not to hurt yourself with those locking rings. Now let's see how this stuff. Oh yeah, this stuff's like a little bit like honey going in. Thick oil. It does have a little bit of a smell, so you might want to be in a ventilated area. We do have a garage door that we can throw open if it gets too bad. Stick our top back on to preserve it. My guess is as we move this stuff around in the tank, it's going to be fairly slow moving, so you're going to have to take your time tumbling the tank. I'm glad I did get the extra quart because I got a feeling it's going to stick to the tank pretty good in there. Oh yeah, this is definitely thick. Okay, we'll put these aside. We'll use those to capture what's left back. Okay, I've heard duct tape gets a little melty when you put it on. I'm going to try just some regular painter's tape to apply over the cap. Try to get it sealed up really, really good so we don't have any leakage. And we are using our cheap Harbor Freight gloves to protect our hands from it. Okay. Should be in good shape there. So now what we'll do is, oh yeah, you can feel it's tumble it around, let some of it get captured. I'm going to try to get all these top seams too. What you're hearing is just a little bit of oil canning in the tank from when it was welded, expanded just a little bit, and there it popped back out. Let it all settle down to one end and slosh around a little bit. You really don't hear it moving around. I do hear it in the tank dripping through the and it is trying to expand a little bit on me. So you probably do not want to seal this off really firmly because it is expanding a little bit. do is do a little pinhole. You can see the expansion air coming out of this thing just with these chemicals. So you definitely do not want to seal this thing up real strongly. I have to seal it back up so I can flip it over. Yeah, we just get a little more leakage. Catch before I tumble the exterior of the tank in this stuff. The one thing about this process, it's really hard to tell how much of the tank you got covered and how much that you don't have covered. The baffles will slow this process up a little bit because they only have so much room to get around in there. One of the most important things is where you have weld seams, you want to make sure that you get as much of the coating in those weld seams just in case there might be a pinhole. That's where the pinholes could be. Then while this is setting up, what we're going to do is at least paint the top of it and the sides, and then we'll get to the bottom last. get the fluid all to one side, I can definitely hear it dripping through, so it's definitely getting to the lower section. So I'll try to move it around on the baffles. The baffles will be the hardest piece to get. And it's good to know the inside of your tank, because I know that there are some lips that are bent into the tank that have weld seams in them, and you really want to try to get those filled with the sealer so that those welds do not rust. And this seems like a real long process, and it actually is. We'll speed the tape up a little bit when we go to production so that you won't have to sit through all of this painful twisting and turning. For our draining process, what we'll do is we'll bring one of these cans out, we'll tilt the tank over the edge and let it come out the snout and back into the can, and we'll lift the tank up so that it will all flow down to this corner. I think we've probably got enough coating in this tank. We can start untaping and unloading this tank. Quite amazing. It looks like the snout of the tank, the input of the tank, actually is nicely coated. So now let's see. Whoa, 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 whoa. There's some in there. Ha-ha. Takes a few hands. so that we don't have a mess. And I think that's going to be a wrap. Looks like I'm getting nothing else out of the tank, so now we just have to let it sit for 24 hours, and then we can go back to putting it in the car, and hopefully we're back in business. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. We'll let you know long term how it works out once we get fuel in the tank. But right now the product looks like it's pretty easy to apply. If you are going to put this into an older tank, there are procedures where you basically hammer around the tank to loosen any of the rough rust out of it. There are some cleaning processes to get the gas out of the tank, to get the rust out of the tank, and make sure that the metal's ready for the application. So read the instructions carefully. This is one you don't want to mess with. Again, we're not typically big on reading instructions, but when it's sensitive as a fuel tank and explosives and things like that, you have to take that very seriously. So thanks for being with us, and have a great day.
Thanks for joining us today at the Full Octane Garage. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Also subscribe to our channel and like us on Facebook. Also, we'd love to have some feedback on what you like, what you don't like, and things you'd like to see in the future. So leave us some comments.